Hey guys, it's Eric with the Miller Park Minute, where we're throwing strikes and getting likes, hitting dingers, and getting listeners back again with another podcast, talking Brew Crew like we always do. We got two games to talk about. We did not do an episode yesterday. We went to the EAA International Air Show. It was a good time. So we got two games to talk about. A little bit of losing going on this weekend, but let's talk some Brewers. First of all, this podcast is a daily show. It isn't, except for yesterday. It's at 5:30 a.m. Central Standard Time is our upload time every day. We're on Apple, Spotify, Google, Rumble, iHeartRadio, CastBox, YouTube, just to name a few. We're on everywhere you find podcasts. We're on TikTok, so all the social platforms. So go ahead and join us there. Today we are doing a special second half of the podcast with our friend David Go from the Barrel Banter. So stay tuned for that. That'll be in a few short minutes after the beginning of this episode. If you want to save money on tickets, go to SeatGeek and type in the code Miller Park Minute over there at SeatGeek. Save yourself some money on some fresh Brewers tickets or any other tickets. If you want to support the show, you can click the link below. Join us. It's just like tipping us for our show. You can also go to patreon.com/Miller Park Minute. There's a bunch of benefits there. There's a special newsletter. We appreciate everyone who is a member and who wants to join us. So we're going to talk about two games, both of which were losses, unfortunately. A tough Braves team beat us. And I'm going to kind of combine the two games, and then we're going to talk overall about what I feel this series means and where we stand. And then we'll get into the interview. So if you look at last night's game, it was a 5-11 loss to the Braves. And you take a look at it and you're like, oh gosh, we just got pulverized. But here's the thing. Outside of the 6-run first, which went on very unanswered, the Brew Crew did their best to answer back. And we could point to pitching. We could point to, Tehran did get lit up for 11 hits, 9 runs, all of which were earned. Gave up 3 long balls, only struck out 4. So Tehran has been a quality start machine for us so far, but just wasn't there. This is a downright ugly performance for him, and I'm not going to give a downright ugly performance too often, but this definitely requires one. Bullpen still giving up some runs there. McGill, Uribe though doing his job, going scoreless. He's got 1.35 ERA, so that's really good. Uribe is a bright spot right there in that pitching performance. Across the board, if you look at Contreras against his old club, 2 for 4, awesome. Yelich, 1 for 3. When the hits don't come, the hits don't come. So as much as we're fighting and we're staying in these games and, we put up some runs, we didn't put up enough. And that's just what it comes down to. So I would say the bright spots in the game are considering Contreras, Santana had an 0-4. Frelick's doing his thing, but he did have an 0-4. He did have 1 RBI though. Wait, no, is that right? Yeah, he did. And these games are gonna come. They're gonna come. We just hope to not have too many bad ones in a row. Obviously, this series we have had a series of bad games in a row. A sweep, and that's just ugly. That's downright ugly. A sweep is downright ugly. This was our worst series in the month of July. We finished off July on a low note. July overall, though, we won just about every series. We tied the one with the Cubs. So not that ugly if you look at it. We're going into a series with the Nats. That's a good thing. Let's talk about Sunday, though. Let's talk about Sunday because I think there needs to be some stuff said here. Christian Yelich hitting home run number 16 and having an all around good day. He had 2 runs, 1 hit, had 2 RBIs. Contreras the same, 2 hits, 2 of the 5. Santana hit a dinger. It was Santana dinger today, right? Santana dinger. What inning was that in? Yeah, Santana dinger in the 3rd inning. Frelick had an over. Frelick's average is now down to 304. His OPS is 916, though. He has been really good for us. They're going to go through slumps. They're going to go through the good and the bad. The outing by Ray today was not a good one. He gave up. I mean, it's just bad. 5 hits, 5 runs, 2 homers. Milner came out and did his thing, albeit giving up a run. Still a decent performance. It was just a home run. Perguo did his thing. And then Payamps got hit up too. The Braves are a tough hitting ball club, though. I mean, if you look across their board, and again, this goes to what I'm talking about, and I've talked about in the last few episodes, is everybody seems to think that we have these magic batting average differentials. There isn't a massive batting average differential. Just more of their guys are higher up in the 200s than we are. You got Frelick coming in at 304 and Toro at 444, who with very limited time, right? But across the board, otherwise, you got Christian Yelich batting 286. You got Ronald Acuna is coming in at 335. Yeah, right, Ronald Acuna, but he's the only guy on their club, and he's been there all season. And Orlando Arcia, who's coming in at 298. And to compare shortstop to shortstop, Orlando Arcia now versus Orlando Arcia of the past, this is a career year for him. So one of the things I keep hearing is I'd rather take Orlando Arcia. Well, Orlando Arcia wasn't this good as a Milwaukee Brewer. Now that begs the question, and I discuss this. I will discuss this at length, but are these players getting some is something missing at the major league level for development of guys? Because look at what Orlando Arcia is doing in his time away from Milwaukee now. I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, it could be. But I mean, across the board, batting averages are down across the league. So maybe he's having a career resurgence. He's looking for that contract. He knows Atlanta's a place that would give him a contract if he plays up to it. Dansby didn't get one, but maybe Orlando could get something for more money than he's ever made. Who knows? I really think the strength here lies in we stay in the fight. If there's any lesson to be learned, any good, bad, or downright ugly, the good is we learned a lesson. We stayed in the fight all weekend long. We put up runs against them. And that's what really matters here. In the grand scheme, that's the important part. We put up runs and we fought. Yeah, we didn't win this series, but we've won quite a few others. Are we going to be able to hold up against good teams? Well, that has been yet to be determined. If we can get these guys firing, we can get Brandon Woodruff back. Wade Miley comes back yet this week. I'm not gonna rule it out. We scored a lot of runs, and we can score a lot of runs. If we could just get this offense to fire all at the same time, I think we could be okay. I really do. I mean, I'm not gonna claim World Series victory. I still think we have 24 to 48 hours to figure out what we're gonna get from the deadline, and I discussed that in a little bit here with David Go of the Barrel Banter. So stay tuned for that part of the episode. The bad is obviously the pitching woes. We got outscored. Downright ugly, I would say the fact that we got swept. I mean, we couldn't take one from them. Last time we at least took one. This time we got swept. They were ready for us. They were very, very, very prepared for us. So is what it is, guys. We move on to the next, and we got a bunch of series against sub 500 teams. If you look at the upcoming schedule, the month of July ended on our first series loss of that month. That's kind of crazy to say in and of itself. Like, we haven't lost a series all month. We tied a series, but we didn't lose one. And we played the Reds, who are number 2 team, well, number 1 now. But you know, we fought hard this month, and we'll see what the next one has to bring. I mean, August is here. We go into 3 games with the Nats, 4 games with the Pirates, 3 games with the Rockies, 3 with the White Sox. Then we play the Dodgers for 3. Rangers gets a little tough in the middle of the month. The Twins, the Padres, the Cubs again. So a lot of good baseball coming up this month. It'll be fun to see where we fall. Let's talk about the numbers real quick before we get into this interview. So obviously we dropped to half game back with the loss today. Christian Yelich is still leading the way, batting average 286. He's got 75 runs, 17 home runs for Willy Adames. He's still keeping that lead. He hit that one dinger to get that lead over Christian Yelich. 59 RBIs for Christian Yelich and 22 stolen bases. And we go to the pitching side. Of course, Corbin Burns got his 9 dubs. 26 saves for Devin. ERA 3.46 for Corbin Burns. Strikeouts 131 for Freddie and for Corbin. Freddie's working his way back up with that big strikeout performance last go around. And a 104 whip for Mr. Burns. So starting tomorrow, we got Burns on the hill, followed by Freddie, followed by Miley. We're going to see Brandon Woodruff back here in the not so distant future, and it's going to be great because we are really in this time where it all matters. This is where we came to play, and it's crunch time. It's almost Craig Temper. So let's get it, guys. All right. The next part of this episode is a discussion, a debate. I don't know what you want to call it. We talk about trades. We talk about potential things that the Brewers need, kind of this window, and where we're going as a team, and kind of just shape of the organization. So I'm gonna kick it over to me and David, just chit-chatting about where the team goes from here and trades and such. You guys have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one. Watch the rest of this video. Listen to the rest of the audio here with me and David Go. All right. Hey, guys. This is the second half of the podcast today. We have David Go, co-host of the Barrel Banter. You can check out his information on his Twitter account, Barrel MKE. He also does a Substack. He puts some pretty good information out week to week on Twitter, comes up with some random things. Other podcasters, including Locked On, have used his information to supplement their podcasts. I may steal his information from time to time. But here's David Go. How are we today, David?
Doing well.
You have a new background, I noticed.
Yeah, I'm in my. So I think last time I was interviewed, I was still at school. So I'm back home right now. Got the flags in the background. Got a little map back there of all the pro baseball stadiums in the country. So
That's awesome. Where West Bend?
I'm in Menominee Falls. My brother's
Menominee
in West
Falls.
Bend.
Gotcha. Okay. I didn't remember if you lived in West Bend or you were from there, maybe. Right?
No, but my brother is, and he lives there. I work there, so
gotcha.
All
right, so we're going to talk about the trade deadline and what we expect and kind of what we feel we need at this juncture. We've already made one big move in acquiring Carlos Santana, and it reminds me of a West Side Story. First and foremost, that was a joke, David. Come on,
Sorry, I didn't. Is that
you know who Carlos Santana is,
the
right?
guitarist?
The musician. Yeah, that's what I was
Okay.
making reference
So
to.
I know kind of who that is, but I don't know if I'd be able to get a joke about
Oh,
him.
okay. He was kind of popular in the '90s, so I know that's like
Tricked me a
you're
little
too
bit.
young for that
Sorry.
time frame, but
Sorry.
that's okay.
Well, we'll pretend I laughed. Pretend that I'm a little older than I am, and
The
get a
audience probably
laughing
isn't
track.
laughing either. It's okay, and they're probably all my age, or older. I've got some guys that like text me that are a little bit older. Shout out, Bill. But so we made this move for a bat, which kind of replaces the Rowdy Tellez that we lost, and really what it is, and this is just my theory on it, but it's a regression of a guy that was kind of already, like mediocre, so to speak, but he was showing signs of like getting better over the last few years. How do you feel he fills the shoes for what Rowdy was prior to this year so far?
Well, I don't think Santana's necessarily going to outproduce Rowdy from last year or even from the second half of 2021. I think it's possible. I think that there's a chance that Santana takes it up a level, playing in a little bit more of a hitter-friendly park, playing in a better lineup too. I mean, in Pittsburgh, he had Kutch in that lineup, who was playing pretty well. O'Neal Cruz when he was on the field, Henry Davis. There are some guys, but hitting behind Yelich, hitting behind Contreras, that's going to probably boost his numbers a little bit. And even just being in a pennant race, usually players will be a little bit more locked in. So I think he's perfectly capable of stepping into that first base role. And Rowdy did pretty well over the past 2 years, I would say. But he also, I mean, hit 219 a year ago. He wasn't necessarily the force in the middle of the lineup that we had, say in 2018, Jesus Aguilar or Eric Thames
Yep.
in 17 or 19. He was more of just an okay option there, and I think Santana fills in there in I think a reasonably good manner.
That I think is kind of, I think he's a stopgap piece. I mean, it's,
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the things that we don't talk about and that isn't talked about in this conversation of trades and negotiating trades and everything that the GMs are doing right now is the ability to just be able to complete a move. I think it's a lot harder than we give them credit for.
Mm-hmm.
Year in and year out, they have to go into these negotiations and take 20 phone calls and figure out, okay, who are they going to accept that I want to get rid of? There's certain names that I'm sure I may not care about, but I know other people as fans have expressed, I don't want to see a Jacob Mazurowski. I don't want to see a Tyler Black. I don't want to see a Jackson Churio get traded. And I think that makes it hard because you're working with limited, like, okay, I don't want to trade this person, but I want to acquire this person. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
there's
you run
certainly
into stalls.
mm-hmm. There's certainly some of that. I mean, I think there are more prospect huggers around the league, both within the organizations, but also among the fans, where 20 years ago, fans didn't really know who the top prospects were. They weren't going to be upset if the Brewers traded Nick Nuggebauer for a decent major leaguer. Whereas now there's so much coverage of the minor leagues, and we see the prospects, we see highlight videos, we see the numbers and all these rankings, and it certainly enhances our understanding, but it also leads to a little bit more frustration when our favorite prospects get traded. So I mean, there's kind of both sides of it where sometimes you just need to trade a Tyler Black, or you need. I like Tyler Black a lot, but sometimes you need to trade a pretty good prospect to get over the hill, because usually to win a World Series, you're going to need to deplete the farm system, and the Brewers did that to try to win from maybe 18 to 21, and then I think within the last couple of years they said, hey, let's take a step back to try to make this sustainable and win, but we're not going to probably put together a 95 win team. We're going to put together an 85, 87, 88 win team while also building the farm system, made some nice draft picks. And now we're dealing with we actually have good prospects we can trade, but do we want to trade them? I think in the right move, maybe, but I wouldn't be interested in trading one of our top prospects for a rental.
And I'd agree with that. I mean, I did put out Shohei Otani when Shohei Otani was being rumored to be traded for Jackson Cheerio straight up. And I would 100% do that deal. I'd still do that deal right now because
See, and I probably wouldn't.
You probably wouldn't?
No, I'd be willing to trade him for one or two of our other very good prospects, but I wouldn't be willing to trade Cheerio for a half year of Otani.
I and this is a difference of mentality between me and a lot of people, and I understand that I'm different in this way.
Mm-hmm.
But I look at it as, okay, what could they be versus, like, okay, we, especially in the Brewers case, we haven't really had, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're the information and stats guy, but we haven't really had a prospect come through the system that's come to the majors and been great. Look at here, and I'll cite this example because we just got done playing the Braves. Look how good Orlando Arcia is playing right now versus how he played when he was with us. One of my the butcher actually said to me this weekend, he said, gosh, I would take Arcia over Adames any day. But that's a different Arcia. That's Orlando Arcia outside of the Brewers.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Is it our system?
It might be. I mean, it might be. Yeah, it might be our upper level development. Take Churio, for example. Churio is also the best prospect the Brewers maybe have ever had. I mean, he's ranked higher on Baseball America than even Braun was, and Braun was considered a top-notch prospect when he was coming up because there were questions about Braun's defense, whereas there aren't really any questions about Churio's defense about any part of Churio's game. But you do run that risk. I'm not saying if I'm trying to think of who would be someone who would become available. I don't know if there is someone that would become available that I would consider trading for Churio. But I do think that there are certain scenarios where teams hug their prospects a little too much. Think about Dave Dombrowski with the Phillies. He was willing to go out and trade some prospects. And yeah, the Phillies farm system is pretty depleted right now, but they also made the World Series last year. There are no guarantees that trading for major league players is going to equal playoff success, but there's also, I would say, there are fewer guarantees with prospects. You just have to be smart about it. And being smart, being too cautious, it's kind of a fine line to walk that I think too many GMs walk the too cautious, where it's like nobody, the Brewers don't have a banner hanging up in there at American Family Field that says ranked number one farm system in baseball 2016 MLB pipeline. But if they had traded some of those prospects for major league talent and won the pennant, not saying there's a 1-to-1 correlation, but you see my point about playoff wins are what matters. So there's a time to trade prospects. There's a time to hold on to them. And walking that line makes me not envious of Matt Arnold's job.
No, I don't like, it's kind of funny when they put him on TV and they have to interview him, so to speak. And, he always, and it's the same with any GM. It was the same with David Stearns, where they put him out there and, he says close to vest things, and you kind of get a read that they want to do something, but they just, it's a level of, like you said, maybe prospect hugging, and maybe like they don't know what they can pull off, because there's so many teams, and I think this is kind of over the last few years kind of hurt it. There's so many teams that are now more into it because of this expanded playoffs. Look at where the Cubs sit. That's one right in our division.
Mm-hmm.
The Cubs just won 7 or 8 in a row.
Yeah, they're on a roll, and they're right in the thick of things. I couldn't tell you their exact place in the standings, but a quick glance looks like they're 53 and 52, 4 games out of the division, and even in the wild card, not too far out. I mean, the Brewers are in a wild card spot right now, but there are a lot of teams bunched together in the NL. I don't know if it's good for baseball, the expanded playoffs. I definitely don't want to see them expand past 6 in each league. But you get kind of the problem with the trade deadline where now there are almost too many contenders, but also it's not really a lot of fun when half the teams get way worse and half the teams get way better at the deadline. And now in August and September, there's so much disparity. It's kind of a difficult situation either way, I guess, for Major League Baseball.
And that's kind of what I've been feeling. That's why I even said, I mean, like, I don't feel this is gonna be we're gonna see the blockbusters, and then sure enough, Max Scherzer gets traded.
Yeah, that was pretty surprising.
But let's talk about, like, for a second here, what you feel versus what I feel we need and what you think we're doing. We did fill a hole. And this is my personal opinion. I think Carlos Santana was great for first base.
Mm-hmm.
Now I could see potentially a third base shortstop would be, a good bat there.
Mm-hmm.
And then I could say we could use an extra outfielder, I guess. It really depends, I guess, where you go with Jesse Winker and his status on the team. I know a lot of people are calling for his head at this current juncture, but and then maybe like a veteran type reliever. I don't necessarily think a starter, but maybe a veteran reliever to get in there with the guys that are already been there.
Mm-hmm.
What do you feel?
Yeah, I would say that right now we're not looking at a blockbuster type move that the Brewers are going to make. I think one name that was tossed around a little bit within Brewer circles was Cody Bellinger. Even I think that one's out the door. He's a rental, so he usually the Brewers aren't going to acquire that high profile of a rental. The Cubs are playing well now. They're not going to trade him to the Brewers in the same division that they're kind of trying to compete in. That one's out. I think someone like Tommy Pham might be a fit. He's a corner outfielder, but I think he would be able to give Yelich a little bit of time off his feet in the outfield, play some left while Yelich DHs, and then the days that Yelich is in left, have Pham DH. I think that would be the same thing with Mark Canha, another Mets outfielder. Both right-handed hitters, both hit left-handed pitching a little bit better. I think those are the types of players that the Brewers could use. Jeimer Candelario from Washington would be another one, switch hitting third baseman, rental. And he's playing pretty well this year, he was pretty good a couple years ago, but having another pretty good year for Washington. As far as the bullpen goes, I don't think the Brewers are looking at remaking the bullpen. I don't think we need any help in the rotation. In the bullpen, I think the Brewers could maybe use a lefty now that Wilson is probably out for the season. I don't know who that would be, and it also depends on Aaron Ashby's health. Of course, within the organization, they know more than I do about Aaron Ashby's health, whether or not they can count on him to come back. Because I think if Ashby can be counted on to come back and pitch some meaningful innings in September and in the playoffs, then I think they're okay in the bullpen. You got your three late inning guys in Williams, Payamps, and Peguero. Hobie Milner's done an excellent job all year, really as the sole lefty in the bullpen. Uribe's he's thrown some meaningful innings already and shown what he can do. They got Bryce Wilson, who's a bullpen innings eater. So I think you throw Aaron Ashby into the mix, and you've got the makings of a really nice bullpen, potentially with someone like Adrian Hauser there in the playoffs. Maybe Colin Ray gets some innings there. Maybe Strzelecki comes back and plays a role there. So I think if they got a veteran lefty, I don't know if Hader is going to be the one. Although I would welcome a Hader addition. Absolutely, I would welcome a Hader addition. Brent Suter, I think, is an option there if the Brewers do try to get a lefty.
Reverse the trade. Just trade Robert Gasser. It's Robert Gasser, right? Trade Robert Gasser back for Hader.
That would be interesting.
That'd be funny. That'd be hilarious.
Yeah, it would. I don't even know if Hader is going to get that much in the trade market, though. I know he's better than Chapman, but Chapman really didn't get much in return, and Chapman's a legit late inning closer type.
He's a veteran. Like, he's a veteran, solid veteran reliever. And, well, he also had that attitude problem with the Yankees, so his value is probably tanked tremendously when he doesn't show up for a playoff practice.
Yeah, to some degree, sure, but I still think, given that return, maybe it would require Gasser, but I'm not even 100% sure that a rental reliever and Hader. But I would trade Gasser back for Hader. I would do
Okay,
that.
I'm gonna
For
spin a
rental.
wild one at you.
Okay.
What if we could get? And it might not require as much as we think because I think the Padres value has gone down. But what if we could get a Juan Soto to fill in kind of in the interim while Garrett Mitchell's coming back? We don't need to burn Garrett Mitchell because Garrett Mitchell's going to be, and I'm going to put him up to the level of Braun, that next franchise guy. We've got 3 good guys for the outfield for the future. For the next 5 to 6 years, we're going to have these 3 in the outfield unless we trade them. Right?
You talking Mitchell, Frelick, and Weimer?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Well, and Yelich for the duration of his.
Yeah, and Churio.
Yeah, and Churio to use. So I mean, could you justify maybe like that catcher prospect? I don't know how to say that. Quiro. Could you justify maybe him in a Gasser and a couple other international prospects that nobody's even heard of, like that Severino? I didn't even know who that guy was. I had to like look up where he was even in the system when that trade went down.
You're saying for Soto or for Soto and Hader?
Yeah, like a package deal. If you could get like a Soto and a Hader together,
I think it would require more than that. I think I'd certainly be willing to part with Caro for a year because you'd have a year and a half of Soto. I would absolutely be willing to part with Caro. I think it would take Caro, Mizorowski, and Black, probably at least those 3 to get Soto and Hader. And then maybe another 2, the teenage lottery ticket type international free agent signings that are 17, 18, 19 years old.
Right.
I think that might get it done for Soto and Hader. Maybe. It's hard to say because Ohtani's not really on the market anymore. And even if he were, he's a rental. I don't really know what the market is for Juan Soto. Certainly, if Soto's available, teams will want Juan Soto. He's an excellent player, excellent hitter.
Right.
And would be a great fit for the Brewers, a team that's last in offense in almost every offensive category in the NL right now. So, and having him for a year and a half, that would be a huge bonus. But I just don't know that the Padres would be. Well, I'm trying to think what they got last year. So last year they traded Wood, something Wood, James Wood.
Yep.
Robert Hassel III, C.J. Abrams, Mackenzie Gore, and I think one more lower level guy along with Luke Voigt actually, for Soto and Josh Bell. I mean, I think James Wood, I'd say is maybe comparable to Caro. I guess there's a chance that Caro, Mizorowski, and Black and a couple other lower level guys gets it done. I don't see it happening. The Brewers are a little bit too risk averse to make that happen.
We're cautious, to say the least.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the things that I look at when I see this is I feel like we still have this window with these. At this juncture, I want to throw Willy Adames out of the big 3 and just say the big 2. You got, because Corbin Burns and Brandon Woodruff haven't really proven anything bad, I guess. You know what I mean? Like right now, Willy Adames is in an extended streak of pretty bad stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Burns had a little spurt of it earlier this season, though, I guess.
Yeah, but it wasn't quite to the extent of Adames. And even Adames last year really was not too far off from this until the last couple weeks of the year.
Right, he really heated up. So there's a potential for that. But, I mean, we've got this good window where you're going to have, a Garrett Mitchell, a Joey Weimer, and if not this year, I'd love to see this year, but if not this year, next year, you're going to have a Garrett Mitchell who's going to have more time, not injured, healed finally. Joey Weimer, who's got basically a year. I mean, I don't see any reason he's going to get sent down.
No,
outside of a major acquisition. Then you're going to have Frelick.
Mm-hmm.
And then you still got Christian Yelich. I mean, he's kind of the constant there. Contreras is going to have another year of major league experience under his belt, and he's pretty consistent already. And then you've got the final year of Burns and Woodruff.
I think Burns is traded this offseason.
If Burns isn't traded this offseason, don't say that. That's like swearing.
Well, I think so. I actually think what's going to happen. You might be disappointed by my prediction. I think Mitchell is also because in the outfield you've got Yelich will probably mix in, even if we say half the time in the
Hmm.
outfield, half the time at DH. You've got Frelick and Weimer, who are. I mean, Weimer's established himself as a capable big leaguer already, and it
Yes.
seems like subtracting Weimer from a team that's really, I think, latched onto him in the clubhouse is what it seems like. I think that would be a big negative. And this is nothing against Garrett Mitchell. He just hasn't had that opportunity because he's been hurt. And Frelick, the impact he's had already on the team, assuming Frelick continues some level of this production in the majors, I think Mitchell's actually the odd man out. And I think the Brewers are going to be too worried about not getting anything in return for Burns. They're not going to trade him midseason next year
Hmm.
because they're not going to risk that. I think this offseason, Burns is traded. I think this offseason, Garrett Mitchell is traded too, though.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's an interesting take. I did mention that I think Garrett Mitchell could be traded, just because I think he has so much upside as a major leaguer
Mm-hmm.
from the short sampling that we've seen of him already. I think he just has too much upside to deny as far as major league level of talent and just how he seems to be bred for baseball. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think so. And it kind of works both ways where you see that kind of player and you want that player on your team, but also then you see the trade value that that guy might have, and it's a little bit enticing. I don't know. I don't think teams will really be worried about his injury because it was his non-throwing shoulder. But who
Right.
knows? We don't really know how that might play out, and maybe Frelick doesn't play well the rest of this year. I think I don't think Churrio's going anywhere. I think that the Brewers are going to try to build around him, and he'll be up as soon. I think by mid season next year, barring injury, that Churrio will be up.
Yeah, I don't
So
think this year yet. I'm not on board. I'm not even on board with this year yet.
I don't think Churrio will be up this year, unless assuming nothing unforeseen happens.
Right. Catastrophe. We don't want to
Yeah,
talk about that.
no. So
Um,
I think the outfield in the future will be, as Yelich shifts maybe a little bit more towards DH in his later years, will be Frelick, Weimer, and Churrio.
yeah, that makes sense to me, and that's fine. He can ride the coattails of his career into that. I think right now on the 40 man or on the active roster, I should say the 20. What is it? 26,
Mm-hmm.
25, 26, 26.
26.
We have just some dead weight spaces that are going to need to go somewhere. And there's players in the organization that I feel like should have worked out better than they did. And so let's talk about this for a minute. You know, we've got guys like a Tyrone Taylor, Luis Urias. I don't know if he'll be able to. I haven't been watching the minors. Maybe you can tell me.
He's actually playing pretty well. I haven't watched his games, but I know
You're watching
scouting the
stats.
stat line. He's
Doing
been
okay.
at least decent.
So, I mean, where do we have a future for, and even a Keston Hura? I mean, he was DFA'd, and as much as he's hitting the tar out of the ball in AAA, the guy can't play in the majors. He's had those opportunities already. Where do you, I mean, you can't, everyone on the internet and everyone in our DM, our Twitter and our Facebook verse always is saying, oh, trade this guy and this guy. Well, it's not that easy. You can't just trade these guys out of the system. You've got to straight out release them.
Yeah, it depends who we're talking about. I think Urias would hold some trade value, but I don't think now's the time to trade him. I think you go well. So I think it depends what they do at the deadline. I think so. I looked at Urias' stats. He has a 740 OPS in AAA, so actually not quite as good as I thought when I before I checked his stats. But I think if the Brewers do get adequate replacements in the offense with maybe it's one of the guys that I mentioned, or maybe a couple of the guys I mentioned, in Candelario and Pham and Canna. But I think if they only maybe get one of those guys, I think maybe Keston Hiura is given an opportunity to DH some. I think maybe Luis Urias is given a chance to play third base. And if they don't work out for the rest of the year, then I think we're maybe looking at a different situation. I think Urias has earned a little bit more leeway. I mean, Hero was designated for assignment this spring and surprisingly went unclaimed. I think it's worth giving him another shot, but you also don't really want to hold. I don't think it would make sense to hold Hero for another off season and into next year if he's not going to really have an impact on the roster. So I think with Taylor, I guess with all three, Taylor's the only one who's on the major league roster right now. But with Taylor, if another outfielder is acquired, I think Taylor might be the odd man out. I think Urias and Keston should be given some more playing time in the last 2 months of the year. But I think if Urias and Keston come back, Urias maybe you hold on to regardless, because we've seen players have a bad year after having a couple good years. We haven't necessarily seen Keston Hiura have that much success in the majors since 2019. So I think Urias, the leash should be a little bit longer.
And what, in that case, what do you do with we've still got Brian Anderson and we still got Owen Miller, so we've got this, we had this problem at the beginning of the year. And I remember actually, I think maybe you and I had a conversation about how it was kind of a good thing that we had this much talent backed up at every position. And now it's come full force where we've actually used just about every guy that we've had as far as backup. Owen Miller, we've had Brian Anderson, well, first of all, do you know the contract statuses of Anderson and Miller?
Miller is still in his pre-arbitration years. So he's under control for a while still, making around the league minimum. Anderson's on a 1-year deal, so he'll be a free agent.
So I mean, he could exit after this year, and it wouldn't be that devastating.
Yeah. Anderson hasn't shown a whole lot beyond that first week that he played. That he was
right.
Excellent. So I wouldn't feel so inclined to give Anderson a bunch of playing time. I think maybe what they should do is after the deadline, depending on how they address the situations, option Turang back to AAA and call up Urias and see if Urias can stick at second and be a little bit better. I haven't been watching him, and of course the organization pays close attention to how he does in AAA beyond just the surface level numbers. But I think it might be worth considering.
Right. And I think we have plenty of stuff to do with the infield and outfield. Obviously, we have depth there, but obviously we're talking trades. We're talking trying to acquire some people, and we've mentioned some names here. Candelario, Eloy Jimenez. I think, did we talk about him at all?
We haven't yet. He's been the talk of Twitter the last couple of days.
Yeah, there's been some rumor swirling around whether that's actually a thing or not. I don't know. It's hard to say where all these actually come from. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I forget who that one was reported by. It seems like it's viable. I would be interested in an Eloy Jimenez, but I think the White Sox asking price might be a little bit too high, just given the fact that he was considered one of their franchise cornerstones for now 4 years. I think he's been with the club. He's got significant defensive limitations, which is okay right now for us at DH. But he's under team control for 3 more years after this one. And does he still hold some value after this year? Sure. But I don't know exactly how he fits on the roster. Usually you want to have a controllable player. You want to be a starting pitcher. You want it to be maybe an up the middle position player. A controllable DH. I'm not so inclined to trade a significant prospect for someone who certainly can hit. I mean, he's hitting about 285 right now, hit some home runs. He would be a boost to the offense, right-handed hitter. I wouldn't be willing to part with one of their top guys. Maybe Robert Gasser is the top guy that I would be willing to part with in an Eloy Jimenez trade. And I'm just not sure if the White Sox would be willing to trade Eloy for a package around Robert Gasser.
Right. The other White Sox guy that's been mentioned is Tim Anderson. Did we? I don't think we talked.
We didn't talk about him either. I wouldn't really be interested in him.
I think he's dropped off too much.
He has, yeah. It'd be too much of a Daniel Norris type situation where we're betting on not the performance that he's had this year. you're kind of looking at someone who's, I mean, he's hitting 245 this year, but he never really walks or hits for power. So 245 average with a 579 OPS. According to Baseball Reference, he's been more than a win below replacement level. So, I mean, Bryce Terang can hit like that, and he can field a lot better than Anderson can. Anderson's got a team option for next year, but if he plays like this, it's not worth picking up that option. So
And I mean,
wouldn't be a
if Willie
fan.
Adames doesn't work out, we can always move Terang over.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah, I
know,
don't know. Yeah, I think Terang could handle shortstop. I don't know if Terang is gonna. There have always been questions about Terang's bat long term, if he's going to be able to hit enough to have an everyday role. But certainly with the glove, I think Terang can handle short.
yeah. And I don't know. Is there anybody else that you think this team could really? I mean, of course, big names. Yeah. Okay, I said this the other day. Like a guy like Justin Verlander, if he would ever come to Milwaukee, I'd be salivating because I love these old dog pitchers. You know, your Max Scherzer, your Justin Verlander, your Clayton Kershaw. These are all my like. I love these guys, but I know it's not a possibility.
Yeah, I think we're looking more at the margins, patching up holes. Andrew McCutchen actually would be an interesting guy. I don't know that he's going to be traded away from Pittsburgh. He likes it there. He is having a much better year than he did last year. Last year, he was the victim of a lot of bad luck, it felt like. But he's having a good year. Randall Grichuk or CJ Crone could be boosts at DH. Both right-handed hitters could hit left-handed pitching pretty well and are both having decent years. I know they're playing in Colorado. Crone, I guess, has been a little bit below career standards. He only has a 299 on base, or at least as of earlier this week. Grichuk was hitting 302 going into the week. So Grichuk could be a nice boost to the contact numbers for a team that's hitting 231. Put him in at DH and have him hit fifth or something like that. Connor Joe from Pittsburgh, maybe. I would be a little bit less inclined on him. He's more of a bench bat to me. But I think Crone and Grichuk probably would be the two that would be the most likely among the guys that I am bringing up now that we didn't talk about earlier.
What about relief help? Who do you think would be? I mean, if anybody, I mean, I know Bednar's out there. We talked a little bit about Hader. Is there anybody that's on your radar that you'd be like super jacked if we got on the relief end?
I think Hader's the only one that I'd be super jacked if we got on the relief end because that's a possibility. I don't see Bednar being dealt Pittsburgh kid under team control for a couple more years. I think he's staying put in Pittsburgh. Hader has a chance of getting traded, so I would be thrilled if the Brewers went and got Hader back. Brent Suter, I think, is honestly the most likely. Maybe a Brad Hand. He's also in Colorado. I think one of those guys could boost the bullpen a little bit. I think those are probably the best fits because we do have Piamps, who I know he allowed that 2-run shot today, but has been quite reliable all year long. Williams, right. Of course, you're not going to get a better closer than Williams. And even Peguero's locked down the 7th. Hobie Milner's been good in high leverage situations. So I think if you throw, I won't complain if the Brewers get Hader, but if you throw a Brent Suter or a Brad Hand, maybe an Aaron Bummer from the White Sox. I know his ERA is bad, but all his other peripheral stats indicate he's been the victim of bad luck and is due for a little bit of positive regression. Maybe he's someone that the Brewers go after, but I think he's a little bit less likely. I think we're looking at maybe Brent Suter or Brad Hand.
Yeah, and that's the truth. I mean, like you got to look at what we can get. There's a lot of these Detroit names, bullpen names, and I'm not satisfied on what I see with some of these Detroit bullpen guys.
No, I mean, I was looking at the Tigers, and like Jason Foley was one of the names that came up. I mean, he seems like they seem like John Curtis type guys. Alex Lang, not a huge fan. Some of these guys, I mean, I've heard of. I couldn't really give you even a scouting report on someone like Tyler Holton. Jose Cisnero, I actually didn't know Jose Cisnero was still pitching. I remember throwback to 10 years ago, he was with Houston, back when Houston was horrible. We were on vacation in Toronto, and I was only, an 11-year-old at the time, and he went to give a ball to a fan, and I stuck my hand out to try to get the ball before the other fan got it. And Jose Cisneros like trying to like joking around, trying to juke out my hand, and he wasn't really upset with me because I was a kid, but I still remember him
That's
kind of
awesome.
looking at me like, "Hey, come on, this is the other guy's ball."
All right. Speaking of the fact that you're a kid, my trivia for you today, without looking it up, who was traded in the CC Sabathia trade?
Matt Laporta was the main prospect. Michael Brantley, the biggest guy, and I think was it Zach Jackson and Rob Bryson.
I figured
They
you'd
were
get
the
it.
other two.
You were a kid when that thing happened.
Yeah, I can't say I remember those guys going back and forth, but I've looked back at the trade far too many times to not remember who the guys were. And Michael Brantley, of course.
Back
Great, a very
then,
good
if I
career.
remember correctly, I'm doing this off memory. I have no pages up or anything in the background. If I remember correctly, like Matt Gamble, not Ben Gamble, Matt Gamble was actually like one of the highly touted like first basemen in the Brewers system, like going that far back almost.
Yeah, I think he was along with Laporta. And actually, yeah, apparently the Brewers and Indians had an agreement where if the Brewers made the playoffs, then the Indians got to choose who the player to be named later was among this list of players. But if the Brewers didn't make the playoffs, then the Brewers got to choose who that player to be named later was. The Brewers, of course, snuck into the playoffs by one game, and the Indians get to choose it. I mean, no Brewer fan would trade that. Of course, making the playoffs in 08 was one of the better moments in franchise history. But supposedly Jonathan Lucroy was actually on that list too, as a player to be named later that Cleveland could have selected, and they ended up going with Brantley, who was I would imagine probably the other excellent choice. Lucroy and Brantley, I find it hard to believe that there were better players in the organization that they could have chosen from at that time.
Well, all right, that's pretty much what I got for you. It's funny to talk about the old stuff with the young guy. Who like okay? What age range were you when the CC thing happened?
I was 6.
Okay, so I remember going to games. I don't know if you went to games back at that time, but I remember going to games that CC pitched. I think I went to like 6 of them, 5 of them. I don't know how many starts he had in the Milwaukee Brewers, but the first one, I just remember I was in the right field bleachers, and it just felt like it was shaking. There was that. It was palpable. You could taste it. It was so fun.
Yeah, I remember going to. Go ahead.
I long for that at any game in the future. I mean, playoff games have been like that and stuff like that, but that was so fun.
Yeah, I remember going to one game that CC pitched in August of 08. But again, I was a young kid, so I didn't have all the. It's just a loud stadium to me. I don't understand all the stuff that's going on. Especially, I didn't live through the 26-year playoff drought. So as a 6-year-old kid, you're just like, oh, this is cool. The Brewers are going to make the playoffs.
Right.
And then now, looking back and seeing what CC did, I mean, 7 complete games in a half year. I think it was 7 or 6 complete games, like 3 shutouts. I mean, that we're not going to see that again.
Nope. Just like you ain't gonna see a lot of what Shohei's doing, but Shohei stayed put. Actually, when I originally contacted you to do this, that was going to be a good portion of our conversation. Was going to be talking about the incredibleness of Shohei Ohtani and how it would impact the Milwaukee Brewers organization. But now it's a couple days later, and the Angels made some moves, and good for them. I mean, you're gonna ride out Shohei as long as you can. Why not? I don't blame them for it. So
yeah, I would do that too. And is the trade they made to get Giolito and who was the other guy? Giolito and I think it was it just Giolito?
No, it was Giolito and oh my gosh, I forget the other guy that they grabbed.
Oh, Ronaldo Lopez. He was
Lopez. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it was one of those trades where I'm like, this is okay. Maybe the Angels gave up a little bit much for Giolito, who's struggling a little bit, but also if you're the Angels, you want to maximize your chances of winning when you've got Trout's locked up long term, but you still got Trout in his prime. He's 32 and he's hurt right now, but he'll be back in sometime in August, most likely. So you've got Trout and you've got Ohtani for a half year, and you want to also put your hat in the ring for possibly signing Ohtani this offseason. I think you have a much better shot of doing that if you show Ohtani that you can make the playoffs this year. I think you have a little bit better of a chance of re-signing him then. So in some ways, I think the trades for Giolito and Lopez, but also for Eduardo Escobar, for Mike Moustakas, they go a little bit further than just your typical rentals, which is crazy because when was the last time we said something like this? I don't know if we ever have. Ohtani's a talent like we've never seen before, but we're kind of saying this about things like this with Ohtani in pretty much every facet of his talent, the things he does on the field, but also the impact he has to the Angels and to baseball as a whole.
Right. I think he's just good for the game across the board, no matter where he is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he could dress for the Colorado Rockies tomorrow and probably just have just as much of an impact on the game as he's having now, or even the Oakland Athletics. Well,
it might save the team.
Right. That being said, let's wrap her up. What's next for David Go in baseball life? The baseball life of David Go, and where are you going?
Yeah, I'm done playing now. Played 3 years in college, and this past year I had surgery on my elbow. The surgery was successful, but had some more nerve issues and some other arm problems. Decided to be done pitching. So back here in the Milwaukee area, I'll be going to UWM to finish. Got a couple years left, and kind of I guess we'll see where things go. If you want to follow my personal stuff at Digo151 on Twitter, and then I've been keeping up with the Barrel at the Barrel MKE. We actually interviewed Tim Dillard, someone who was on your show. We interviewed him on Saturday for our podcast, so that one will be dropping. I don't know when you're releasing the show, I guess, but it'll be releasing Monday. Okay, Monday, July 31st. That was a very good episode. I enjoyed. And
you're every week, like you do once a week, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Tim is so much fun. I love having him on the show. I wish he had more. Like he's very fair. Like he gives you like one, but he doesn't want to keep coming back. I've talked to him about it multiple times. So you're kind of hanging it up for this juncture, but who knows if you make an appearance in the Northwoods League?
No, that's kind of out the door.
That ship has sailed. Damn. All right.
Yeah. I had my 2-week stint in Fond du Lac a couple of years ago, where we probably crossed paths without knowing it. But
I'm sad about it. I'm sad, man. Like, maybe you could just like do a tryout for the Brewers.
Yeah. Bullpen help. There's our lefty.
Yes.
Yeah, they need a lefty that's 86, 87 with
some come on. You know how beautiful that would be? They could talk about you being a young kid. They could flash pictures of you in your youth, you and Peter hanging out at the ballpark. Oh,
mm-hmm.
It'd be, and they'd pronounce the name of your town wrong, even if it is just Menominee Falls or wherever you hail from.
Yeah, basically get the Owen Miller treatment.
It'd be fun.
Yeah,
it'd be good times. All right, well, I'll let you go, guys. This is Eric with the Milwaukee Park Minute signing out. As always, guys, go Brewers. We'll get them tomorrow. Thank you for watching. Remember to like and subscribe. Go check out the Barrel Banter on Twitter and his podcast, and you can follow all of his things. He's got Substack. His Substack is really good. I don't really understand Substack, but I found it the other day and I read it, so I think that counts for points.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Have a great rest of your night, day, wherever you're listening to this. Go Brewers.
Thank you for watching the Miller Park Minute. Go Brewers.